If you discovered a family secret that changed everything, would you pursue the truth or let it rest? The late autumn sun dipped low behind the school's towering brick facade, casting long fingers of fading amber light through the cracked windows of the crowded hallway. A cold draft slithered beneath the classroom door as laughter erupted, sharp and mocking, ricocheting off the lockers glittering with metallic echoes. Mia's chest tightened, every rib pressed inward by the weight of invisible eyes, snickering at the back of her head. She clutched the worn strap of her backpack like a lifeline, the canvas frayed and thin beneath her pale fingers. Her dark hair, caught loosely beneath a faded blue scarf, trembled slightly as she forced her gaze downward, avoiding the glowing circles of smartphone screens that held her like a spotlight in a theater of cruelty. "Hey! Look! It's Invisible Girl," a voice sneered, dragging the words through the cold air like an icicle scraping bone. The giggles spiraled around her, settling like frost on her skin. Mia's piercing blue eyes flicked sideways, catching glimpses of familiar faces she wished would dissolve into the walls, faces twisted with amusement and derision. Her heart hammered a frantic rhythm against her ribs as she edged closer to the exit, hoping the door could whisk her away from this relentless light. The polished linoleum underfoot gleamed cruelly, reflecting the crooked smiles and whispered taunts. Her breaths came shallow, a brittle mist in the fall air, mingling with the faint scent of old books and chalk dust carried in from the adjacent classrooms. A heavy pack pressed against her back, weighed down not just by textbooks but by years of silent retreats, unspoken fears, and the relentless ache of not belonging. The ticking of a broken clock overhead faltered, its steady cadence fractured, mirroring the disjointed fragments of confidence slipping through her fingers. "You're just a ghost here," someone murmured, soft yet stabbing, as if the words had grown teeth. Mia's knees wobbled, the crowd an unfurling wave crashing against her resolve. Her fingers unfolded, trembling slightly, brushing against the tiny petals pressed inside her sketchbook, fragile, delicate, an echo of a beauty she longed to grasp. The petals were faded, their edges curling, a symbol of transient hope and hidden fragility. The bell's sharp ring shattered the haze, but the echoes of laughter lingered, pulsing in her ears like a dull heartbeat. She stepped out into the chilled dusk, the cold biting through her sweater, a fierce reminder of her solitude. Outside, the autumn leaves swirled in patches of deep russet and gold, tumbling like fragile echoes of forgotten grace. The breeze whispered secrets only she seemed to hear, carrying with it the scent of rain and earth, and the faintest promise of something beyond the ache. Mia paused at the weathered stone steps, chest heaving, eyes tracing the fractured umbrella of a nearby tree whose branches reached out in jagged defiance against the dying light. Her hand lifted, fingers curling around a brittle leaf, its veins tracing intricate maps of time and change. A single tear escaped, catching the last gleam of sun as it slid silently down her cheek, a quiet testament to wounds hidden beneath the surface. In the fragile twilight, beneath a sky slow to darken, Mia's gaze hardened not in surrender, but in the first flicker of a resolve yet to be born. The broken clock above resumed its ticking, a little offbeat, forging forward. And Mia, shadowed yet shimmering, merged into the gathering night, an unseen spark poised on the cusp of revelation. The quiet hum of the furnace echoed faintly in the background as Mia slipped through the narrow back door of her house, the cold bite of the early evening clinging stubbornly to her skin despite the warmth inside. The weight of the day's whispered jabs, sidelong glances, and empty laughter pressed down on her like a shroud, suffocating and relentless. She dragged off her backpack with silent urgency, the fabric worn and faded from years of carrying too many burdens unseen. Her bare feet made no sound on the hardwood floor as she moved, the walls close and familiar yet somehow alien tonight. The faint scent of wood polish mingled with the soft, musky aroma of old books stored in the attic above, air refuge and mystery. Up the creaky stairs, she ascended into the dim sanctuary of the attic. The space was a vault of memories, its dust motes glimmering in the streams of fading autumn sunlight that found their way through a small, grimy window. Boxes lined the walls, repositories of forgotten times, their lids askew and settled in layers of neglect. She hesitated briefly at the threshold, the silence thick, pregnant with secrets and shadows. Her fingers brushed over a worn blanket folded on an old trunk, her touch tentative, hesitant as if reaching for a forgotten part of herself. The attic was cold. The chill whispered in the corners, curling around boxes and forgotten toys, weaving through the faded fabric of years past. Her breath plumed in little clouds, a fragile signal that she was still here, still searching, even as shadows flickered just beyond her sight. Mia knelt by a battered chest that had survived decades of neglect, its wood scarred yet sturdy. She hesitated, heart lurching unwillingly. This place held more than dust and faded photographs. It held echoes. The lid creaked open reluctantly, revealing a jumble of old photographs, yellowed letters, and a weathered leather-bound diary. The edges of its cover were frayed, the binding worn soft by time. Its presence spoke volumes, a silent invitation and challenge intertwined. She lifted the diary gently, breath-catching as she traced the embossed initials on the cover, her father's handwriting etched in delicate loops that she once knew but now felt profoundly distant. The diary was heavier than its size suggested, a weight of years, of memories and secrets carefully locked away. Her fingers trembled as she opened it, the brittle pages fluttering softly like wings against the autumn light. The faded ink was neat, sometimes hurried, sometimes contemplative, a tapestry of words weaving past and present into a story that beckoned her closer. A loose sheet slipped from between the pages, drifting like a forgotten petal landing gently at her feet. She picked it up carefully, eyes scanning the delicate script, sensing the fragile boundary between love and loss, between what was known and the unspoken mysteries lurking in the shadows of her family's history. Outside, the wind sang through the bare branches, a sorrowful lullaby carried beneath the fading glow of twilight. Mia's breath slowed, tangled with the tender ache swelling within her chest, the ache of longing for truth, for connection, and for a glimpse of the self she might one day truly know. A flicker of determination sparked behind her sapphire eyes, the first fragile ember breaking through layers of fear and doubt. The attic, with its dust and forgotten whispers, had become more than a refuge. It was a doorway. As she touched the diary again, the broken clock on the wall ticked unevenly, its hands frozen or perhaps waiting. Time itself seemed suspended, poised on the cusp of revelation. Mia held her breath, poised at the edge of discovery, where the past awaited to reach out and reshape the very fabric of her present. The attic was heavy with the musty scent of old paper and forgotten memories. Dust motes floated lethargically in the golden shafts of late afternoon light, each particle catching fire briefly before settling back into the silent gloom. Mia sat cross-legged on the cold wooden floor, her fingers trembling slightly as they traced the worn leather binding of the diary she had just uncovered. A fragile hush wrapped around her, the world outside slipping away into a muted dreamscape. She exhaled slowly, the weight of her earlier humiliation at school gnawing at the edges of her mind, weaving through the soft rustle of her sweater and the distant creak of the attic's rafters. Yet beneath the ache, a pulse of curiosity stirred, a relentless, flickering flame amid the soft shadows. Tentatively, Mia edged open the cover, the faint crackle of aging paper a whispered welcome to a forgotten past. The handwriting inside was elegant yet hesitant, the ink faded but legible, looping across pages in a slow dance of secrets and confessions. Her breath caught as she read the first entry, the words capturing moments years before her own birth, recordings of a life she never knew was there. The diary spoke of laughter and sorrow, whispered promises and quiet betrayals, revealing glimpses of a man whose presence she thought she understood but was now reimagined through the tender etchings of memory. A breeze sifted through the broken attic window, carrying the scent of autumn leaves and distant rain. A few soft petals, pressed between the pages, fluttered free and landed gently on Mia's palm. The delicate pink of the petals against her skin was a vivid echo of the fragility and beauty threaded through the diary's whispers. Her gaze lifted to a broken clock mounted on the wall, its hands frozen at an obscure time lost, or perhaps waiting to be rediscovered. The haunting stillness of its face mirrored the fragile pause in her chest, a moment where past and present collapsed into one. Mia's fingers lingered over an entry penned in a different hand, words unfamiliar yet laden with emotion, speaking of a secret, a promise, of a life intertwined but hidden. The diary held names she did not recognize, and glimpses into relationships shadowed by silence and longing. There was a tremor in the air, almost imperceptible, as if the diary itself breathed beneath her touch, yearning to reveal more. Shadows stretched along the rafters, curling and unfurling like restless memories awakening from their slumber. A sudden gust stirred the petals across the floor, carrying a haunting fragrance of earth and nostalgia, urging Mia toward a truth both terrifying and inevitable. As twilight deepened outside, painting the sky in bruised purples and soft oranges, Mia closed the diary softly but with a new weight on her shoulders, a sense that her understanding of the world, of family, and of herself was on the cusp of irreversible change. Her eyes, now clear despite the lingering sting of pain, glinted with a determined resolve. The fragile petals lay at her feet, a silent testament to the delicate, beautiful, and sometimes painful journey she was about to embark upon. In the quiet attic, under the watchful gaze of the broken clock, Mia rose not as a girl burdened by fear, but as a seeker ignited by the flickering light of a mystery now hers to unravel. The shadows trembled once more as the last light faded, and with courage steeping into her veins, Mia stepped toward the doorway, the diary clutched close, the key to past secrets and the uncertain promise of tomorrow. The amber light of late afternoon filtered through the half-open window, casting long, somber shadows that stretched across the familiar clutter of Mia's bedroom. The air was heavy with the scent of drying leaves and faint hints of rain, hovering on the edge of an impending autumn storm. Mia sat cross-legged on the worn wooden floor, the pages of the diary spread open before her like fragile wings, whispering promises of secrets and revelations yet to be unveiled. Her best friend, Zoe, hovered nearby, fingers nervously twisting a lock of her own hair. Their eyes met in a silent conversation, curiosity laced with unspoken fears. The dusty pages rustled as Mia traced the faded handwriting, each line stirring a tempest of contradictions and possibilities. This can't be real," Zoe whispered, voice trembling with a mix of awe and dread. "Entries about you, written before you were even born." Mia nodded, the piercing blue of her eyes reflecting the muted firelight flickering from the corner candle. "I don't know what to think. It's like discovering someone was writing my life story without me knowing. I feel invaded, but also strangely connected." Outside, the wind began to pick up, rustling branches that scraped softly against the windowpane, echoing the turmoil swirling inside her. The broken clock on the wall ticked unevenly, its hands trapped in an eternal, frozen moment, time lost, mourned, waiting to be reclaimed. Flipping through the diary, her fingers paused over a passage shrouded in cryptic language, a tangled thread of riddles and hidden meanings. Her heart quickened, a cocktail of apprehension and exhilaration. The mystery teased her spirit to unravel the knot of her father's past, but shadows of doubt and fear coiled tightly, threatening to suffocate the fragile hope budding within her. "What if this changes everything?" Mia murmured, voice barely audible above the pattering rain beginning to tap against the window. Zoe reached out, her hand brushing Mia's gently, a silent pledge of solidarity. "Whatever happens, we'll figure it out together." A sudden gust rattled the panes violently, scattering a few brittle flower petals Mia had pressed between the pages, now drifting like soft hail over the scattered words of the diary, a quiet reminder of life's delicate beauty caught in the harsh dance of change. Mia's gaze lifted to the muted sky outside, the world blurred and shifting through the haze of rain. Her breath caught, her resolve teetering precariously on the edge of fear and courage. Behind the veil of familiar surroundings, the diary pulsed softly alive with whispered promises, aching secrets, and the shadowed paths of her father's hidden truths beckoning her to tread deeper into the labyrinth of her own identity. The room felt colder, The candle's flame flickered once, twice, then steadied a fragile heartbeat in the encroaching dusk. Mia's voice steadied, resolute yet wary. We have to know. We can't let the past define us, but maybe understanding it can help us find our own path. Zoe nodded solemnly, the weight of unspoken fears softened by the warm promise in Mia's gaze. The storm outside raged quietly, the house creaking like an old ship navigating unseen currents. The broken clock ticked on, stubborn and faint against the rolling thunder. And as the diary's pages fluttered with a breath of unseen wind, the first step into the unknown was taken, the journey ignited not without hesitation, but with a flicker of fierce determination. A name lingered on the edge of their thoughts, unknown, repetitive, elusive, a shadow poised to unravel the fragile threads of what Mia believed to be her own story. The room brightened with a sudden, unexpected glow as the candle steadied once more, casting honest light across the diary's faded ink, and the girls joined hands ready to face the shadows, one whispered secret at a time. The diary lay open on Mia's bedroom floor, its fragile pages delicately spread beneath the warm glow of a cracked lampshade. The golden light spilled unevenly over the faded ink, tracing shapes that whispered secrets and riddles, yet some passages were blurred, obscured by the passage of time or perhaps something more deliberate. Mia's piercing blue eyes moved rapidly across them, searching for meaning where confusion tangled with revelation. Beside her, Zoe's brow furrowed, quiet and tense in the dim room. The initial thrill of discovery had begun to give way to something less certain, a growing disquiet tempered by strange contradictions within the diary's lines. Between their whispered speculations, hidden messages slipped past like shadows, their true intent obscured. Why would Dad write about me before I was born? Mia's voice broke the silence, threading desperation and awe. Some parts don't line up. This date here, the other child's name. I don't know what to think anymore. Zoe exchanged a hesitant glance, her face pale but resolute. Maybe it's not just about your family. There's more underneath. It feels like a code, like he wanted you to find it but is warning you too. The room's atmosphere thickened as the golden hues shifted subtly, casting deeper shadows into the corners. The broken clock on the wall marked a half-past unknown, its hands frozen in a moment suspended between past and present. Mia's trembling fingers toyed absently with the old flower petals pressed between the diary's pages, delicate, fragile, beautiful but transient, mirroring the fragile threads of her unraveling certainty. A sudden gust pushed through the slightly ajar window, scattering a few dry leaves across the floor outside, their brittle rustling echoing the unsettled tension within. Mia paused, a sudden impulse sharpening her gaze towards the diary's corners. There, buried beneath looping cursive, a strange, repetitive name caught her eye, a whispered riddle she couldn't yet decode. Her heart thumped erratically as a soft ding from her phone broke the lull, a message from an unknown sender illuminating the screen, a cryptic question. Are you ready to know the truth? The weight of the diary in her lap suddenly felt heavier, not just an artifact but a living portal colliding her present with a past that refused to stay buried. The light flickered, shadows dancing, and for a moment the room felt less like a sanctuary and more like the edge of a precipice. Mia's breath hitched but her eyes hardened, glinting with the fragile steel of a sparrow braving an approaching storm. We have to keep going, she whispered, more to herself than to Zoe. No matter what. Zoe nodded quietly, the flicker of determination reflected in her gaze. Together, their whispered resolve carved through the gathering doubts. Outside the window, the wind carried away the restless autumn leaves, scattering them wide across the darkening street, an ephemeral trail leading deeper into the mystery. The pages turned again, secrets murmuring from the past, and beneath the uncertainty, a singular truth simmered: the past was not yet done with Mia. Its shadows stretched long and wild, promising that the unraveling had only just begun. The air hung thick between the slats of the attic window, filtering the setting sun into a hazy amber glow that dusted the scattered pages of the old diary lying open on Mia's lap. The warm light was a stark contrast to the cold shiver crawling up her spine, a subtle prelude to the storm building deep within her heart. Her fingers trembled against the fragile vellum as she uncovered a passage unlike any before, its ink faded yet fiercely insistent. The words told of a child she had never heard, of a secret life folded into the margins of her family's history, whispered promises that bound her father to another someone outside the framed photographs and Sunday dinners she remembered only distantly. Mia's breath hitched. The room spun in tandem with the broken hands of the clock, each tick an echo of time lost, stolen, or forever altered. The flower petals tucked between pages fluttered free, their delicate descent mirroring the fragile threads of her identity unraveling before her eyes. Who is this? Her voice was barely a whisper, trembling as if the words themselves might shatter the delicate balance of secrets. A sudden gust drew in through the cracked window, tousling her dark hair and lifting the edges of the diary as if the past itself breathed life anew. Shadows curled along the beams overhead, twisting in eerie dances that seemed to echo her mounting doubts and fears. The diary revealed a promise made in a time before her first breath, bound not just in ink but in whispered devotion to a destiny entwined with choices she never envisioned. Her father's predictions, penned with aching precision, spanned years, foretelling moments yet lived and mysteries yet unveiled. She pressed her palm to the fragile page, feeling the weight of generations tilt beneath her touch. The truth spread its wings, heavy with loss and shadowed affection, both a betrayal and a bridge to understanding. I'm not who I thought I was, Mia murmured, struggling to reconcile the delicate balance of love and deceit woven into the fabric of her family. Her eyes closed briefly, the diary's secrets unfolding in vivid, painful clarity, a kaleidoscope of fractured memories, lost dreams, and the enduring hope that tethered her still. Her identity, once a constant rhythm, now beat to an uncertain, haunting pulse. The attic seemed to hold its breath as she turned the page, the diary's whispers rising to a crescendo, an invitation and a command intertwined. Then, nestled between the worn pages, she found it, an unassuming note, scrawled in her father's hand, a tender yet urgent plea. Follow your heart. Find what was hidden not in shadows but in light. Truth lies beyond fear. The candle flickered, casting warm hues that spilled across the fragile paper. Mia's face was bathed in the glow, her eyes bright, her expression a blend of determination and fragile hope. She closed the diary slowly, the weight of its secrets settling deep inside but tempered now with the spark of purpose. The broken clock chimed softly, a single, resonant note signaling the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. A name echoed faintly in her mind, repeated through the diary's pages but still a mystery, a ghost lingering on the edge of revelation. Mia rose, her silhouette steady against the dying light, the diary held close. She was no longer simply the observer of her family's shadowed past, she was its reluctant heir, ready to confront what lay beyond. The attic's silence swelled around her, filled now not with resignation but with the first fierce pulses of courage. The journey into the heart of her father's secrets had begun, and with it, the unraveling of everything she had ever known. The night was thick with cold, a biting silence wrapping itself around Mia's small, dimly lit room like a suffocating shroud. The only source of light, a flickering candle on the aged wooden desk, cast trembling shadows across the walls, distorting familiar shapes into haunted specters. The broken clock, frozen at an hour-long past, ticked faintly, its uneven beat echoing the erratic rhythm of Mia's chest as she sat motionless. She clutched the diary tightly, its leather cover worn soft beneath her trembling fingers. The edges of the fragile pages whispered secrets of a past she had only begun to glimpse, but tonight, those whispers felt like daggers piercing through the fragile veneer of her understanding. Her blue eyes, usually so piercing and determined, were dulled by a tide of despair that threatened to pull her beneath an unseen abyss. Her mind spiraled back to the confrontation with her mother, the sharpness of the words exchanged still burning raw in her memory. The harsh truths shattered the illusions Mia had held onto, unraveling the carefully woven tapestry of family and trust that had once anchored her. The revelations didn't just sting, they obliterated, leaving in their wake a void where certainty and love once lived. The room seemed to close in around her, shrinking until the walls pressed against her skin, the darkness swallowing even the faintest glimmers of hope. Outside, the wind howled mournfully, rattling the broken window pane, its cold fingers threading through the cracked glass and seeping into her bones. Mia's breath hitched as a solitary flower petal, pressed long ago within the diary's pages, slipped free and fluttered softly to the floor, a delicate, silent echo of the fragile beauty and shattered innocence that seemed increasingly lost. She reached out, her hand hovering over the fragile petal, her fingertips trembling as if afraid to touch what might crumble beneath her touch. A heavy silence hung in the room, pierced only by the faint rustle of the petal against the flora, sound remarkably loud in the oppressive quiet. Mia's lips parted slightly, a breath lost in the void. The identity she had fought to nurture felt unmoored, her purpose obscured by the tangled threads of her father's revealed secrets. Her eyes drifted to the broken clock once more, its frozen hands a grim reminder of time lost and moments that would never return. She felt suspended between past and future, caught in the cruel limbo of a present stripped bare. Her shoulders sagged, the weight of betrayal and confusion folding into her like a cold shadow. Words fled from her grasp. Silence became her reluctant refuge. No comfort came from the darkness, only the echoing emptiness of questions without answers. Mia's gaze locked on her reflection in the cracked mirror across the room. The face staring back was pale and fragmented, caught beneath layers of sorrow and bewilderment. The candle's flame flickered, casting the room into shifting chiaroscuro light and darkness intertwined in a fragile dance. In that fractured reflection, she saw herself unraveling her heart, a thin thread stretched taut, trembling on the edge of breaking. The diary slipped from her fingers, its fall muffled by the thick carpet, but the silence that followed was anything but quiet. The night deepened, swallowing the last of the fading light, as Mia sat alone, her world unraveling in the slow, merciless cadence of despair. The cold descended like a shroud, slipping beneath the heavily curtained windows, wrapping the attic in a biting embrace. Mia sat curled on the floor, her back pressed against the rough, splintered wood of the wall, the dying light casting a pallid glow over the scattered remnants of the diary's pages and the withered flower petals that lay like forgotten memories around her. The house around her seemed to sink into silence, deep and suffocating, the distant tick of the broken clock headers toward a heart-stopping emptiness. Her breath came shallow, a frail mist in the brittle air, while her hands clutched at the fragile edge of a torn diary page, words blurred, fading like the tenuous grip she had on the threads of her own life. Somewhere beyond the earthen walls, the wind whispered through barren trees, dragging brittle leaves that scraped faint patterns against the windowpane, echoing the inner desolation that gripped her. The tear in her soul was palpable, a hollow growing, stretching out to fill the grieving silence where light once danced. Her piercing blue eyes stared blankly at the shattered clock face mounted crookedly on the attic wall, its hands frozen mid-motion, a cruel symbol of time lost, moments stolen by truths too devastating to bear. A single petal, dislodged from its place between the diary's pages, lay motionless on the cold floor, its delicate blush a stark contrast against the dark wood, a fragile emblem of the beauty swallowed by betrayal. Mia's fingertips trembled as they traced the petal's fragile outline, the weight of abandonment seeping into her bones. Her world, once anchored by the quiet certainties of family and love, now dissolved into shadowed fragments, drifting further from her fragile grasp with each labored breath. The darkness thickened, pressing in, swallowing sound. The sparse light flickered uncertainly from the lone candle, its glow a faltering heartbeat in the overwhelming void. Every lingering whisper of hope, every flicker of trust seemed to dissipate into the stifling stillness, leaving only the echoing emptiness of loss. Her lips parted faintly, a breath escaping like a ghost, scarcely more than a silence between heartbeats. Why? No answer came, only the cold, indifferent night. Her body sagged further into the shadows, the fragile candle sputtering nearer to its end, its flame lashing weakly as if struggling to survive against the relentless dark. The attic seemed to contract, the walls inching closer, the floorboards creaking with the weight of her despair. Mia's eyes closed, tears sliding down in silent rivulets, mingling with the shadowed stains of uncertainty and regret. And in that desolate moment, she surrendered. Still. Silent. Crushed beneath the unbearable weight of secrets unfolded too late, and love irrevocably changed. The candle's last flicker danced once, a trembling sigh, before the shadows reclaimed the room in chilling embrace. Time held its breath. And then there was nothing but quiet. The attic lay cloaked in deep shadows, the pale light of dawn seeping weakly through the grimy window, struggling to touch the corners where years of dust and sorrow had gathered. Mia sat on the cold wooden floor, her body curled protectively around the battered diary, its leather cover creased and softened by time and hidden tears. Around her lay the scattered petals, delicate and faded, their fragile beauty a stark contrast to the heaviness nestled in her chest. Her eyes, once bright with curiosity, now shimmered with the residue of tears, reflecting a tumultuous storm of betrayal, loss, and aching solitude. Each breath she drew was slow, a fragile thread holding her to the moment, to the space where past and present collided in a restless dance. The harsh truths she'd confronted with her mother lingered like spectral chains, wrapping tighter with every memory recalled. The stories once whispered in hushed rooms now roared through her mind, fracturing the fragile identity she had clung to. She was no longer just Mia's girl who lost and longed, but a silhouette stretched thin between the shadows of secrets and the dawn of truths she was only beginning to grasp. A slight breeze stirred the petals at her side, a soft whisper against the worn pages of the diary, as if the past itself unfolded a breath to comfort her. Her fingers reached out instinctively, tracing the faint pressed bloom, its edges curled and fragile, a symbol of ephemeral beauty persisting against the ravages of time. Mia's hand closed gently over the diary as a single, lucid thought emerged from the haze. Within these pages lay not only pain but the ember of a path forward, a fragile light veiled beneath layers of silence. Her gaze drifted upward to the broken clock on the worn wall, its hands frozen but significant, embodying both time lost and time yet to be discovered. The image struck deep, mirrored in the shadows of her soul, a moment suspended, waiting to be released. In the stillness, a quiet sound stirred, soft, almost imperceptibly, a rustle, like a page turning by unseen hands. She blinked, heart-hitching, as if the diary itself breathed, urging her onward even amidst the wreckage of despair. Words from the faded entries resurfaced, entwined with a delicate note hidden within the folds, a secret left as a beacon, a silent encouragement to follow her own heart beyond the shadows of doubt. Seek the light within the silence, the note seemed to say without voice, beckoning her to rise from the depths of loss. A fragile clarity dawned, fragile as the petals at her feet but unyielding in its promise. The journey was far from over. The mysteries within the diary whispered still, each entry a step toward understanding, toward reclaiming shattered fragments of self. Mia rose slowly, her breath steadying, eyes alight with the faint but unquenchable spark of hope. The attic, once a tomb of forgotten memories, now felt like a gateway waiting for her to cross its threshold with courage renewed. The morning light stretched, spilling gold and amber across the worn floorboards, casting long shadows that no longer frightened but beckoned toward secrets waiting just beyond reach. With the diary clasped to her heart, she whispered into the quiet space, a vow and a prayer intertwined, "I will find the truth. I will understand." The flower petals drifted softly in the gentle currents of morning air, their fragile descent a delicate dance of beauty and resilience. And beneath the silent watch of the broken clock, time gathered itself, fractured but whole, poised to reclaim what was lost and illuminate a path yet to be taken. The air was thick with the scent of aged paper and faint autumnal decay as Mia opened the diary once more, its leather cover whispering secrets long held in silence. Warm light spilled softly from a nearby lamp, casting gentle golden hues that danced across the worn pages and highlighted the delicate pressed petals nestled within. Her fingers, once trembling with uncertainty and grief, now moved with a tentative steadiness, tracing the faded ink that seemed to breathe faintly beneath her touch. She sat amid scattered relics of her journey, the photographs of her family, the broken clock with broken hands, and the diary that had uncovered truths she had only begun to comprehend. The room, once suffused with shadows of betrayal and loss, now carried a subtle hopea whisper of renewal in the gentle glow of the lamp, the warm tone of the autumn colors outside filtering through curtained windows. Her eyes, piercing and blue, lingered on an entry still faintly legible, words that spoke of a promise made long ago, a vow, veiled in ink and secrecy, yet strangely bright with the embers of a hope she dared to believe might still be alive. A soft breeze stirred the curtains, its cool breath intertwining with the warm remnants of her resolve. The petals, delicate but resilient, seemed to shimmer in the filtered light, a poetic symbol of fragility and enduring strength. In that quiet moment, Mia's lips parted slightly, a breath escaping like a fragile exhale, surprised by the faint spark of optimism that flickered anew within. She reached out, gently clutching the diary against her chest, feeling the weight of the past and the present mingling in her heart. The shadows on the wall receded just a little, overtaken by shadows of light, an unsteady but undeniable shift from despair to tentative hope. Her gaze lifted slowly from the pages, taking in the room, her sanctuary of secrets and truths, and the realization dawned. The journey was far from over, but the first step had been taken. A new dawn flickered in her eyes, faint but luminous, promising that even in shadows, a sliver of light persisted. The clock's muted ticking became a lullaby of sorts, a gentle reminder that time, though fractured, still moved forward. The room, bathed in a delicate embrace of shadow and warmth, preserved this fragile moment, a testament to resilience rising from the ashes. Mia whispered softly, voice trembling with both caution and a burgeoning strength, "I can choose to walk this path. A little more courage, a little more hope. Maybe I can find the truth and still be who I am." As she closed her eyes briefly, the scene softened into a cinematic tableau silhouette framed by the window, the petals glistening in the warm light, the distant clock ticking steadily in the background. A pause, pregnant with possibility, where despair gently gave way to the first flickers of renewal, an uncertain but hopeful dawn. The air in the abandoned room trembled as Mia's heart thundered, but her resolve surged stronger than her fear. The walls, lined with faded wallpaper and shadows that refused to fade, seemed to pulse with an ancient energy, alive with secrets that beckoned her deeper. Her fingertips brushed the cold, cracked surface of the diary, now worn with age and the weight of truths left unspoken. A flicker of pale light danced across her face, cast from the small candle she had lit, a fragile yet unwavering flame in the suffocating darkness. The room felt both ominous and sacred, as if the very air whispered of liberation, meaning hidden beyond the veil of her doubts and pain. With a measured breath, she turned the heavy pages, each one a gateway to her father's silent past. The ink was faded but resolute, inscribed with a tenderness that contrasted with the shadows lurking in the corners. In that moment, Mia felt an awakening, a stirring deep within her that relinquished the chains of betrayal and fear. Her eyes lingered on a crumpled, yellowed photograph tucked between the pages, a snapshot of her father, young and smiling, yet haunted by apparitions she now began to understand. The moment was delicate, suspended in the hush of revelation, as she traced the contours of her own reflection in the mirror, her piercing blue eyes soft yet shimmering with the faint glimmer of purpose. "It's not just his story," she whispered, voice trembling with a mix of awe and courage. "It's our sore history, our truth, our future." Her words, suffused with a tender strength, floated into the shadows, stirring something ancient and enduring. Outside, the wind's moan softened, carried away in the dawning silence as the candle's flame steadied, more resolute than ever. The chamber of secrets and shadows tilted towards the light, fragile, yet brave, like a flower daring to bloom amidst ruins. A shimmering tear traced down her cheek, glinting in the candlelight, a symbol of both loss and awakening. She pressed her palm against the diary's aged cover, feeling the pulse of her own resilience beat in tandem with the whispering echoes of her father's love, a love that survived silence, secrets, and time. The boundaries between past and present blurred for a fleeting moment, revealing a glimpse of unity, an unbreakable chain connecting her to a lineage of hidden strength. In the hallowed silence, Mia softly vowed, "I will carry this story, not as a burden, but as a gift. I am the keeper of truth, and my journey is just beginning." She lifted her chin, eyes gleaming with renewed purpose, and the candle flared once more, illuminating the room in a golden halo. Shadows receded, replaced by the soft glow of a future forged from the courage to look beyond what fears had whispered. With a gentle, resolute breath, Mia stepped forward, a new chapter unfolding, uncertain yet glowing with the promise of hope amid the lingering shadows. The room, once a chamber of darkness, now shimmered with a fragile, luminous dawn, as if the very walls had embraced her transformation. The shadows that had once clung to the edges of her mind dissolved under the gentle but relentless glow of dawn. Mia stood tall in the center of the hidden chamber, her silhouette illuminated by the first warm rays creeping through the cracked window. The air felt lighter, infused with a newfound clarity that shimmered in her piercing blue eyes, a quiet but undeniable victory. The chamber, once thick with darkness and secrets, now radiated a soft, golden hue. The mirror, still hanging askew but shimmering faintly, reflected her upright figure, no longer trembling, no longer lost in shadows. Her hand reached out, fingertips brushing its cold surface, a visceral connection to her own resolve. Her breathing was slow but steady, each inhale a breath of liberation and purpose. The diary, still clasped in her other hand, was now a symbol of her rebirth, a testament to the journey she'd undertaken to confront the shadows of her father's past and her own uncertainty. In her mind, echoes of the fractured clock's quiet ticking blended with the whispers of pressed petals, fragile yet resilient, like her own spirit. The past had tried to imprison her, but she had chosen to unchain herself, to forge a new future from the remnants of secrets long buried. The room, her sanctuary of truth, became a place of silent affirmation. Her lips parted in a gentle smile, a quiet acknowledgement that she was no longer defined by betrayal or fear. Instead, she was a bearer of truths, a custodian of her own story, ready to step into the light. The distant horizon, painted in the soft hues of awakening dawn, stretched beyond the fractured walls. The darkness was retreating, replaced by a delicate promise. Even amid shadows, light persists, patient, resilient, unyielding. As she turned away from the mirror, her silhouette bathed in the dawn's tender glow, Mia carried the weight of her journey, a journey of loss, discovery, and finally, acceptance. Her steps were deliberate, steady, a resolve born from the depths of despair but now rising with quiet strength. The chamber, once a vault of secrets, slowly faded into the background, the scene held in a perfect tableau of hope and renewal. Every shadow, every fractured piece, had transformed into a luminous thread woven into the fabric of her new identity. With a final, lingering glance at the glowing horizon, Mia stepped forward, her figure marked by grace, purpose, and peace, ready to redefine her story, unshackled by the darkness, guided by the unbreakable light within. The soft glow of dusk painted the sky in hues of amber and soft purple as Mia stood barefoot on the porch, the familiar creak of the old wooden steps grounding her in a moment of quiet reflection. Her hand gently rested on the doorframe, her piercing blue eyes gazing out over the sprawling fields beyond, now bathed in a gentle, fading light. The transition from turmoil to peace felt almost sacred, an unspoken acceptance settling deep within her, like a gentle whisper carried on the cool evening breeze. She clasped her hands softly in front of her, the fragile movement a deliberate act of surrender. The diary, a battered relic of secrets, sorrow, and hope, lay quietly in her lap, its leather cover worn and softened by her touch. The final pages, once full of pain and betrayal, now shimmered with the dawn of understanding, the promise of healing. The pressed flower petals, delicately unfolding in the gentle wind, seemed to bloom anew symbols of resilience and fragile beauty. The broken clock in the corner, once an ominous reminder of time lost, now stood silent and still, a witness to her transformation. Behind her, the warm interior of the house glowed softly, the faint flicker of candlelight illuminating the space where shadows once lurked, now transformed into quiet comfort. Her fingers brushed the pages of the diary one last time, tracing letters filled with unspoken love and painful truths. Each word was a piece of her, a puzzle assembled through betrayal, secrets, and a relentless pursuit of truth. The revelations had shattered her illusions, yes, but they had also illuminated a hidden strength deep within. As she closed her eyes, Mia felt the cool air brush softly against her skin, carrying the scent of earth and blossoming promise. The distant hum of the evening settled into a tranquil hush, a lullaby of acceptance that quieted her restless spirit. Her journey had forged her now an indelible imprint of truth and discovery. A gentle smile curved her lips as she finally sat back, the diary resting beside her. Her breathing slowed, a peaceful exhale that exorcised the last of her doubts. The universe outside stretched into quiet eternity, silent in the knowledge that she had stepped into her truth, the past shadows woven gracefully into the fabric of her identity. In that moment, she was no longer merely the girl who had fallen into despair, but a woman embracing her complex story whole, healed, and wholeheartedly at peace. Her silhouette blurred with the fading horizon, illuminated by the soft twilight, a figure poised between the echoes of her past and the promise of the future. The golden hue of sunset poured through the window, casting a gentle glow that touched Mia's face as she stood quietly in her room, the diary now closed and resting on the ancient wooden table. Her breath was slow, deliberate, as if exhaling the burdens of a lifetime of secrets. In her eyes, a luminous calm shone in, and spoken peace forged through understanding and acceptance. She reached out and gently brushed her fingers over the cover, a tactile connection to the truth that had unraveled within its worn pages. The shadows that once haunted her mind retreated gently, dissolved into the amber light of dusk. The fragments of betrayal and loss, once piercing daggers, had become gentle memories, necessary pieces of her story. Outside, the wind softened, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and distant rain, whispering a lullaby of renewal. The broken clock on the wall, silent now, seemed to hold a new meaning, the precious, fragile nature of time, of moments reclaimed and paused in the flow of forgiveness. Mia's lips curved in a faint, genuine smile, a smile of healing, of embracing her complex legacy rather than resisting it. Her eyes lingered on the horizon, where the sky melted into a canvas of colors, blending past and future into a seamless, hope-drenched horizon. Her hand clasped her chest, feeling the steady beating, her heart resilient, now unshackled from fears that had once been overwhelming. The petals pressed between the diary's pages, once symbols of delicate sorrow, now shimmered softly in her mind as tokens of resilience, fragile but enduring. Slowly, she turned toward the open window, the cool air washing over her, invigorating her with a calm resolve. The night was falling, but she was bathed in the tranquil light of inner peace and acceptance of her history and the power of her own evolving identity. In silent reverence, Mia took a step back from the window, breathing deeply the crisp, fragrant air. The distant city lights flickered on, distant stars sparkled shyly overhead, silent witnesses to her transformation. The past was no longer a shadow cast over her. It was a part of her, woven into the fabric of her soul. As she moved to sit by the window, her gaze fell on the diary, still open but no longer a source of anguish. Instead, it was her foundation, her story to tell, her truth to carry forward. The world beyond beckoned, not as a place of fears, but as a horizon filled with infinite hope. Her eyes closed briefly, a gentle moment of surrender and renewal. Her breathing slowed, and a whisper of gratitude escaped her lips, soft, reverent, and full of promise. The scene drew outward, framing her silhouette bathed in the warm glow of dusk, her figure poised on the cusp of a new beginning, her spirit unshackled, embracing the legacy of love, secrets, and strength that she now carried with quiet grace. The world, bathed in twilight's tender glow, seemed to hold its breath as the quiet hero, finally at peace, looked toward the dawn of her renewed journey. The fading light in the quiet park cast long, gentle shadows across the quiet grass as Mia stood alone beneath the ancient oak. Her silhouette was softly illuminated, painted in 10,000 hues of gold and amber by the setting sun, an eternal symbol of peace woven into the tapestry of her life's journey. The diary, now closed and resting in her hands, was warm against her palms, its leather cover pressed gently into her chest as if anchoring her to a truth she had finally embraced. She gazed at the horizon where the sky stretched endlessly, an infinite canvas of muted colors, blending past and future in harmonious silence. The wind, cool and tender, stirred the leaves, making them whisper softly echoes of secrets once buried but now softly sung into the breath of eternity. Beneath her feet, the earth felt steady, holding her in a gentle embrace as memories, grief, and hope swirled within her, a quiet storm at the cusp of calm. Her eyes, once sharp with the ache of betrayal, now shimmered with a tranquil glow, a reflection of the peace she had fought so fiercely to attain. Her fingers traced the outline of the pressed petals on her left palm, each fragile as her emotions, each delicate as the journey she had traveled. The petals' faint aroma mingled with the fresh scent of spring's promise, hinting that growth, forgiveness, and renewal had blossomed anew within her. A single, slow breath slipped from her lips, soft, almost inaudible, carrying her hopes into the vast, forgiving sky. Her shoulders relaxed, the tension dissolving into the gentle breeze, and in that moment, she felt the timeless unity between the shadows and the light, her story woven seamlessly between both. She closed her eyes for a long, lingering moment, allowing the silence deep and full to settle. Her heart rested in an unshakable stillness, no longer burdened by the weight of secrets or the ghosts of betrayal. Instead, she carried a quiet strength, an echo of resilience that would forever resonate in the core of her being. Carrying the diary close, Mia turned her face upward to the horizon, a faint smile curling her lips, the smile of someone who had truly found herself. The sky shimmered in the soft glow of twilight, the evening star whispering silent promises of hope. In that luminous pause, the scene held steady, a peaceful tableau of acceptance, where shadows dissolved into light and the tapestry of her identity was finally woven with threads of understanding, forgiving, and profound peace. What hidden truths lie in your family? Share your discoveries.